Hello, boys and girls, and welcome, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles. And today we have with us, what's your name?
Charlie.
Charlie. Charlie is one of my grandchildren. Miss Colleen has 5 grandchildren, okay? And he's going to partake with me today a little bit in the lesson. And today's lesson is lesson number, do you know which lesson it is, boys and girls? Lesson number 6, that's right. So welcome year 1, and let us begin by lighting our candle. Remember, lighting the candle reminds us of the light of Christ, with Jesus always being with us. And the biggest reminder then with that is the light that we carry out into the world. The things that we do, our smiles, and the joy that we bring to others, especially now during the Christmas season. So saying joy, that reminds me of this, our Advent wreath. Remember when we made our Advent wreath? Charlie, what candle? Can you see what candle we're on right now? Right, and what candle is that?
Joy.
That's joy, right. This was hope, and this was peace, and this one is joy. So all week long, we do candle number 3, joy. And moms and dads, that's why it's very important, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles, adults, that you do these lessons shortly after you receive them. If you wait too long to do the lesson, it may be somewhat out of season. So if I was showing you an Advent wreath and you went to make your Advent wreath and you were behind and we're in like February, it wouldn't make a lot of sense, okay? So do the lessons along with us. As soon as you receive your lesson, it might be hard to do it that day or the day after, but at least do it within a few days after you receive it, okay? At least by the end of the week on Friday. I know some of you have to wait till Saturday because you're just so busy with your school, and that's understandable. But don't go too much past that, because then you'll be out of perhaps the liturgical season with this. And the other thing that we always do, Charlie, is we do our prayer sticks. And here's our prayer pockets. So we're going to pull out one of our sticks. Boys and girls, what stick number do we always put into the prayer pocket? Which one? That's right, number 1. And what does number 1 mean? Right, Thanksgiving. Number 1 is Thanksgiving. Charlie's looking at the camera, waiting for you to answer. This isn't a Zoom, Charlie. Huh, it's not a Zoom, no. You know, it's just a video, but I feel like I'm right with you, boys and girls, and that's why it's so awesome that I have Charlie with me today, that I have somebody with me. Okay, I always have Jesus with me though, right? You bet. So I'm gonna put Thanksgiving in there. And let's see, kind of think about what our lesson is going to be today. And let me see. I think I personally am going to choose consecration, number 5. Remember, consecration, to give this all to Him. The greatest gift that I can give to God is to say, your will be done. Okay, that's to trust Jesus. So I'm going to use number 5, Charlie. That's all about trusting God. That's just all about trusting Him. Consecration. Big word, isn't it? Can you say consecration?
Consecration.
Consecration. So I'm going to use those 2 sticks. Take a moment, boys and girls. You can use any sticks that you like. Okay? All right. And you know how Miss Colleen always does? I'm going to pop up 1 second, and I'm going to make sure it's recording. And we are recording. Okay, so we are good to go. See, it's just me and Charlie. Is there a cameraman back there, Charlie? Is there someone doing the lights and the cameras and everything? Is there someone standing there? No. Okay, it's just little old Miss Colleen, right? And Jesus. So let us begin. We've got our candle lit. We have chosen our prayer. Okay, and there we go. All right, let's open with a prayer. This is joy. I'm trying to get my seat comfy here. I'll be here for a few minutes. So joy. How can we bring joy into the life of others? Think for just a moment, and then we'll make the sign of the cross together. think a minute for Charlie, how we can bring joy into people's life. What are some of the things? You don't have to speak out loud, but think for a minute. Some things that you can do to make others happy, to make others smile. So think for a minute, boys and girls, how you can bring joy into someone's life. During Christmas, sometimes we get a little confused and we think the joy only comes from lots of presents or something that's really expensive and that perfect gift, and we think, it's going to make them so happy. But sometimes those things don't bring a lasting joy. The things that bring joy are being kind to one another and to bring peace in the environment around you and in your home. So think of ways that you can bring joy, okay? You think for a minute, Charlie, how you can bring joy in your home. Do you have any brothers or sisters? Yeah, you have one brother. What's his name?
Noah.
Noah, okay. Do you and your brother get along with each other? Yes. Do you ever have little arguments and fight over a toy or something?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, right. And we do. Yes, because that happens sometimes. Perhaps you can bring Noah joy when he's wanting something. You could just go, you know what, Noah? Go ahead and you take your turn first. You play with it first. Noah will copy you, and he'll do that. He'll learn to do that as well. When we give, that brings joy. So open up your journals, boys and girls, and I want you to write at the top on a blank page, get a blank page out. And at the top of that journal, I want you to write the word joy. Charlie, can you write the word joy real big, real big? Boys and girls, you do that as well. Write the word joy. Does everyone know how to spell joy? Charlie, how do you spell joy?
J-O-Y.
Correct, J-O-Y. Now Charlie is just like you, boys and girls. He does not know what Grandma's going to teach today. So he's partaking just like you are in a lesson. So see how Charlie wrote joy up here? Okay, now I want you to either write in sentences or draw a picture of something that brings joy. Oh, he put an exclamation mark after his. Joy! Great. All right, Charlie, you draw something where you know that would bring joy to someone in your home. So Charlie's gonna draw. I'm gonna let Charlie write in my journal today. All right, boys and girls? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Let's enter joy into our journals and draw something of joy. I'll give you a few moments. We'll do that together. Okay, very nice. I think I can see exactly what you drew there. That's really nice. Good drawing there. Okay, Grandma's gonna write something too, okay? I'm gonna write a way that I can bring joy. Okay, boys and girls, you can always come back to your journals later And I really encourage you to come back to your journals later. Your journals are a way of praying, a way of speaking to Jesus. Maybe sometimes we're a little frustrated and we get a little angry or we get mad about something. And instead of yelling at somebody or getting angry, go off into your room, get your little journals out, and write something to Jesus. Those bells sounded real, didn't they? Sound like somebody was shaking bells behind us. Charlie, I wrote some things on joy, and the joy are usually our journals. What we write in here are personal. But Charlie, can you read what this says?
Make bread.
Make bread. What else?
Make noodles.
Good. Does that bring you joy when Grandma makes bread? Makes her homemade bread and makes noodles? Every time Charlie comes over, he looks to see if Grandma has homemade egg noodles. Does that bring you joy? Yes, that puts a smile on Charlie's face, okay? That brings joy. And I'm sure Charlie would much rather walk into Grandma's house and smell homemade bread and have noodles than if I were just to have some present there that later he would forget all about, some little car or whatever, because that will bring joy. All right, so there's many ways we can bring joy to others. So let's set our journal aside, and then we'll get right into our lesson for today. Let's make the sign of the cross as we leave our journaling. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. Now today in our lesson, Miss Colleen is going to read you a story. I'm going to turn the music down here a little bit. Boys and girls, do you know what a miracle is? Charlie, do you know what a miracle is? What if someone said, that was a miracle? What would you think they meant?
Like if that was like a...
Would it be something really wow? Something super special that happened?
Like if there's a new baby or something?
Excellent, very good. You went, okay, that's probably the best answer because babies are miracles. Miracle is something that you're just like, wow. Sometimes it's like, how did that happen? Sometimes a miracle if somebody's really, really sick and then they're healed and they're not sick any longer, we would say that's a miracle. What a miracle. But Charlie had the perfect answer, and I'm really proud of you because you don't know what Grandma's going to do today and what this is about, but perhaps looking at the cover there and the back here, put a little bit of an answer into your heart and the miracle of birth, the miracle of a little child. Listen carefully to the miracle of joy. This book is going to be all about that miracle that you just spoke about and the third candle, bringing joy. The Christmas miracle of Jonathan Toomey. Now in a few moments, I'm going to ask for Charlie's help with this, okay? So watch carefully and listen carefully, boys and girls. Now, when we did this story together, when we do it together, I am a little teeny tiny bit sad that we are not all together because one of the things I'd asked my children to do was to go like this with their finger whenever they heard the word molasses cookie. So Charlie, you listen carefully. Whenever you hear the word molasses cookie, go like this. And when we did this together in class in the hall, whenever the children heard molasses cookie, they went like this. I said, if I saw your fingers going like this, at the end of the story, I would give out molasses cookies. And that's what I really miss, because on this video, I can't give you a molasses cookie. And I was thinking about putting molasses cookie in your little pickup packet, but I was afraid it'd be stale by then. We always made, Tara did for us, Miss Tara, the most yummy, scrumptious, homemade molasses cookies. They were like that thick and they were super sweet and so gooey and so warm. If your mom and dad or somebody in your home wants to look up a recipe for molasses cookies, they're amazing. Some of the stores have them and they're really, really good, okay? I think Trader Joe's has really good molasses cookies. Some of the stores have good ones. They're not hard and crunchy, they're just so yummy. So I cannot give you a molasses cookie, but I do want to see that you're paying close attention. So whenever you hear molasses cookie, Charlie, what are you gonna do? That's right. You're going to go like this. And we did that, boys and girls, because we didn't want to interrupt the story. I knew if the children went, oh, 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 then we would interrupt the story. So just quietly go like this. If you hear molasses cookie. And maybe I'll have some other special treat for you, or maybe when we can come back together prayerfully, I will have molasses cookies. Okay? All right, the Christmas miracle of Jonathan Toomey. The village children called him Mr. Gloomy. Look at him. Mr. Gloomy. He would walk with his head down, very heavy, like he was really, really sad. They called him Mr. Gloomy because of that, but his real name was Mr. Toomey. Mr. Jonathan Toomey, in fact, was his name. And though it's not quite kind to call people names, this name of Mr. Gloomy fit him quite well. For Jonathan Toomey never smiled. He never laughed. He went about mumbling and grumbling, muttering and sputtering, grumping and griping all the time. He complained that the church bells rang too often, and that the birds sang too shrilly, and that the children played too loudly. He was always complaining. Mr. Toomey was a wood carver. And in a moment, Charlie, I'll help me get something out, okay? Mr. Toomey was a wood carver. Some said he was the best wood carver in the whole valley. He spent his days sitting at a workbench, carving beautiful shapes from blocks of pine and hickory and chestnut wood. After supper, he sat in a straight back chair near the fireplace, smoking his pipe and staring into the flames. Jonathan Toomey wasn't an old man, but if you saw him, you might think that he was. The way he walked all bent forward with his head down, you wouldn't notice his eyes, the clear blue eyes like an August sky. And you wouldn't see the dimple on his chin, since his face was mostly hidden under a shaggy, untrimmed beard, speckled with sawdust and wood shavings, and depending upon what he ate that day, the crumbs would still be in his beard. Dried potatoes and gravy. And you know what I think I'll do, Charlie? Let's do this. Jump up for one moment. That'll be your little chair. And then we'll have you sit in this little chair right here. Jump up for one moment. Okay, sit right there. Careful not to hit the camera. Okay, perfect. Then you can see the pictures too, and then I'll have you come over and help with this, okay? All right. So there's Mr. Toomey. The village people didn't know it, but there was a reason for his gloom. There was a reason for his grumbling, and a reason why he walked all hunched over as if carrying a great weight on his shoulders. Some years earlier, when Jonathan Toomey was young and full of life and full of love, his wife and his baby became very sick. And because those were the days, boys and girls, before hospitals and medicine and skilled doctors, his wife and baby died 3 days apart from one another. So Jonathan Toomey packed up his belongings to a wagon and traveled till his eyes and tears filled up. He settled into a tiny house at the end of the village to do his wood carving. Mr. Toomey was very sad. One day in early December, there was a knock on Jonathan's door. Mumbling and grumbling, he went to answer it. There stood a woman and a young boy. "I am the widow McDowell. I'm new in your village. This is my son Thomas," the woman said. "I'm 7 years old. I know how to whistle." Charlie, do you know how to whistle? Yes, Charlie whistles all the time, so much sometimes that Grandma says, Charlie, stop whistling, right? Yes, Charlie loves to whistle. And he was 7 years old, and he loved to whistle. Grumpy Mr. Toomey said, whistling is pish-posh, the woodcarver said gruffly. And the woman said, I need something carved. And she told Jonathan about a very special set of Christmas figures her grandfather had carved for her when she was just a little girl. After I moved here, I discovered that they were lost, she explained. I had hoped that by some miracle I would find them again, but it just hasn't happened. There are no such thing as miracles, the woodcarver told her. Now, can you just describe the figures for me, please? Well, they were sheep, she told him. 2 of them, Thomas said. 2 of them with curly wool. Yes, 2 of them, said the widow. And a cow and an angel and Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus and wise men. 3 of them, Thomas piped in. Will you take the job? Mrs. McDowell asked. I will, he said grumbly. I am grateful. How soon can you have them ready? They will be ready when they are ready, he barked out. Oh, but I must have them for Christmas. They mean so much to me. I can't remember a Christmas without them. Christmas is pish-posh, said Jonathan gruffly, and he shut the door. The following week, there was a knock on the woodcarver's door. Help me knock? You knock for me, Charlie, whenever there's a knock. There you go. The following week, that knock went nice and loud and muttering and sputtering. He went to answer it, and there stood the widow McDowell and Thomas. Excuse me, said the widow, but Thomas has been begging to come and watch you work. He says he wants to be a woodcarver when he grows up, and he would like to watch you since you're the very best in the valley. I'll be quiet. You won't even know I'm here, please, Thomas piped in, please. With a grumble, the woodcarver stepped aside to let them in. He grumbled. He pointed to a stool near his workbench. No talking, no jiggling, no noise, he ordered Thomas. Ooh. The widow McDowell handed Mr. Toomey a warm loaf of cornbread. As a token of thank you. Then she took out her knitting needles and sat in the rocking chair in the far corner of his cottage. Not there, bellowed out the woodcarver. No one sits in that chair. Ooh, she quickly moved to the straight-back chair near the fire. Thomas sat very still. Once when he needed to sneeze, he pressed his finger under his nose to hold it back. Once he wanted desperately to scratch his leg. He counted to 20 to keep his mind off the itch. Oh, his leg was itching so bad, but he didn't want to move because Mr. Toomey said, hold still. After a very long time, Thomas cleared his throat and whispered, Mr. Toomey, may I ask you a question? The woodcarver glared at Thomas, then shrugged his shoulders and grunted. Thomas decided, I guess, that meant yes. So he went on and said, is that my sheep that you're carving? The woodcarver nodded and grunted. Mm-hmm. After another very long time, Thomas whispered, Mr. Toomey, excuse me, but you're carving my sheep wrong. The widow McDowell's knitting needles stopped. Jonathan Toomey's knife stopped carving. Thomas went on. It's a beautiful sheep and all, nice and curly, but my sheep looked happy. That's pish-posh, said Mr. Toomey. Sheep are sheep. They can't look happy. Oh, mine did, said Thomas. They knew that they were with the baby Jesus, so my sheep were happy. After that, Thomas was quiet for the rest of the afternoon. When the church bells chimed 6 o'clock, Mr. Toomey grumbled under his breath. It was time to leave. Thomas sneezed 3 times. Achoo! 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 Ah, he was so happy they could finally sneeze. And he thanked the woodcarver. Thank you for letting me watch. That evening, after a supper of cornbread and boiled potatoes, the woodcarver sat down at his bench. He picked up his knife, he picked up the sheep, and he worked until his eyelids drooped shut. Be careful not to trip on the camera. Come over here, Charlie. And let's put this out right here on the table. Right there for the boys and girls. A few days later, there was a knock on the woodcarver's door. Grumbling and griping, he went to answer it. There stood the widow and her son. "May I watch again?" "Oh, I'll be quiet," said Thomas. He settled himself on the stool very quietly while his mother laid a basket of sweet-smelling raisin buns on the table. "The teapot is warm," Mr. Toomey said, kind of in a grumbly voice, and then his head bent over to work some more. While Mr. Toomey carved, the widow McDowell poured tea. She touched the woodcarver gently on the shoulder and placed a cup of tea and a bun right next to him. He pretended not to notice, but soon both the plate and the cup were empty. Thomas tried to eat the bun his mother had given him, and quietly as he could, but it was almost impossible to be 7 years old and hold still, right? And eat a bun, you bet. Especially a warm raisin sticky bun, and not make any noises. But out came various smacking and slurping noises, satisfying noises, but he was trying so hard to be quiet. When Thomas had finished, he tried to sit quietly. Once he almost hiccuped, but he took a deep breath and held it till his face turned red, so he wouldn't make any noise. At once, without thinking, he began to swing his legs back and forth, but a glare came from the woodcarver, which meant stop, hold still. So he held his legs so still that it almost fell asleep. Oh. After a very long time, Thomas whispered, "Mr. Toomey, excuse me, may I ask you a question?" Is that my cow that you're carving?" After another long time went by, then Thomas cleared his throat and said, "Mr. Toomey, excuse me, but I must tell you something. That's a beautiful cow, the most beautiful cow I've ever seen, but it's not right. My cow looked very proud." "That's pish-posh," growled the woodcarver. "Cows are cows. They cannot look proud." "Oh, my cow did. It knew that Jesus chose to be born in its barn, so it was very proud." Thomas was quiet the rest of the afternoon. The only sounds that could be heard were the scraping of the carving knife, the humming of Mrs. McDowell, the widow who was knitting, and the click, 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 click of her knitting needles. When the church bells chimed 6 o'clock, Mr. Toomey muttered under his breath about the noise. The widow McDowell said it was time to leave. Thomas shook one leg, a little bit, and that was asleep. Then he shook the other leg. He thanked the woodcarver for allowing him to watch. That evening, after a supper of boiled potatoes and raisin buns, the woodcarver sat down at his bench. He picked up his carving knife, he picked up the cow, and he worked until his eyelids drooped shut. Go ahead. Good. Does that look like a proud cow? That does, doesn't it? Charlie, you take a peek over there. You go look at the camera and be super careful not to trip. And tell me if you can see the cow and the sheep in there.
Yep.
Can you see them? Okay, perfect. We just want to make sure the boys and girls can see. Okay, come on back over here. Okay. That's good, Charlie. Come back over here. Good deal. Thank you. He wants to make sure that you can see the proud cow. All right. So I think anything we put right here, they'll be able to see. So he worked until his eyelids drooped shut, carving the cow. A few days later, there was a knock on the wood carver's door. There was a knock. There was a knock. He smoothed down his hair and he went to answer it. Come sit here, Charlie, just for a minute. Okay, you just wait. I know he's getting excited. He's getting excited to get them ready for you. May I watch again? Asked Thomas. As Mrs. McDowell warmed at the tea and put a plate of fresh molasses cookies, Charlie, of fresh molasses cookies on the workbench, Thomas watched the woodcarver work on the figure of the angel. After a very long time, Thomas spoke. Mr. Toomey, excuse me, is that my angel that you're carving? Yes, and would you do me the favor of telling me exactly what I'm doing wrong? Well, my angel looked like one of God's most important angels because it was sent to the baby Jesus. And just how does one make an angel look important? Oh, you'll be able to do it, said Thomas. You're the best wood carver in the whole valley. After another very long time, Thomas spoke. Mr. Toomey, excuse me, may I ask you a question? Do you ever stop talking? Said the wood carver. Oh, my mother says I don't either. She says I could learn a thing or two about the virtue of silence from you. Under his beard, the woodcarver's face turned pink. The widow McDowell's face turned as red as the scarf that she was knitting. They were a little embarrassed when he gave out that compliment. Well, speak up. What's your question? Would you please teach me to carve? He asked. I'm a very busy man, grumbled the woodcarver, but he put down the important angel. You'll carve a bird. A robin, I hope, Thomas said. I like robins. With a piece of charcoal, the woodcarver sketched a robin on a small piece of brown paper. He handed Thomas a block of pine and a knife. He showed him how to lop the corners off of the block and slowly smooth the edges of the wood into curves. Thomas copied the woodcarver's strokes, head bent down, tongue going back and forth side to side with his lower lip as he concentrated. When the church bells chimed 6 o'clock, Jonathan Toomey was holding Thomas's hand in his, guiding the knife along the edge of a wing. He didn't even hear the church bells ring. The widow McDowell said it was time to leave. Thomas brushed wood shavings off of his shirt. Then he reached out and brushed 2 especially large pieces of wood shaving from Jonathan Toomey's beard. He thanked the woodcarver for teaching him how to carve. Later, after a supper of boiled potatoes and molasses cookies, Jonathan Toomey went to his workbench. He thought for a long time. He sketched drawing after drawing. Finally, he picked up his carving knife. He picked up the angel, and he carved until his eyelids drooped shut. Good. Okay, now don't take them out until we get there, okay? All right. A few days later, there was a knock on the woodcarver's door. Boys and girls, you can all knock with us. A few days later, there was a knock on the woodcarver's door. Mr. Toomey jumped up this time to answer it. There stood the widow McDowell with a bouquet of pine boughs and holly sprigs dotted with berries. And there stood Thomas, clutching his partly carved robin. While Thomas and Mr. Toomey carved, Mrs. McDowell put a bouquet in a jar of water. She scrubbed Mr. Toomey's kitchen table and set the jar in the center on a pretty cloth embroidered with lilies of the valley and daisies, which she found in a drawer below the cupboard. Next, I will carve the wise men and Joseph, the woodcarver said. Perhaps before I begin, you will tell me about all the mistakes I'm going to make. Well, said Thomas, My wise men were wearing their most wonderful robes because they were going to visit Jesus, and my Joseph was leaning over baby Jesus like he was protecting him. He looked very serious. It wasn't until the church bells had chimed and the widow and her son were preparing to go that Mr. Toomey saw the jar of pine boughs and the scrub table and the cloth embroidered with lilies of the valley and the daisies. And Mrs. McDowell said, "Oh, I found that cloth in a drawer," just like there Miss Colleen's taking him out of here. "I found that cloth in a drawer. I thought it would look pretty on the table," the widow said, smiling. "Never open that drawer," the woodcarver said very harshly. When the two had left, Jonathan put the cloth away. That evening after supper of boiled potatoes, the woodcarver worked on Joseph and the wise men until his eyelids drooped shut. Joseph and the wise men. Very good. Now you find Joseph in there too. Yes. After a few days, there was a knock on the woodcarver's door. He dusted the crumbs from his beard and brushed the sawdust from his shirt. At the door were the widow McDowell and Thomas. All afternoon, Thomas watched the woodcarver work. When it was time to leave, Jonathan said to Thomas, "I'm about to begin the last two figures, Mary and the baby. Can you tell me how your figures looked?" "Oh, they were the most special of all," Thomas said. "Jesus was smiling and reaching up to his mother, and Mary looked like she loved him so very much." Just wait, Charlie. Just wait. "Thank you, Thomas," said the woodcarver. "Tomorrow is Christmas. Is there any chance that the figures will be ready?" the McDowell said. "They will be ready when they are ready." "I understand," said the widow, and she handed Jonathan 2 packages. "Merry Christmas," she said. Jonathan folded his arms across his chest. "I want no presents," he said harshly and grumbling. "That's exactly why we're giving them to you," answered the widow, and she put them down on the table. She smiled, her heart with joy, and she left. Jonathan sat down at the table. Slowly he opened up the first package, and inside was a red scarf. Hand knitted and warm and bright, he tied the scarf around his neck. The other package held a little robin, crudely carved out of pine. A smile twitched at the corner of Jonathan's mouth. Just a little smile came, just a little one. He ran his fingers over the lopsided wings. He dusted his fireplace mantle up above the fire, and he placed the carved robin that Thomas had made right in the center so that he could look at it all night. I'll show you a picture of that right here. See Thomas's little robin up there on the fireplace? He put it right up there in the center, which means he liked it. He didn't say anything. Keep those down in your lap, Charlie. The woodcarver, Charlie, boys and girls, did not eat supper that day. Instead, he began to sketch the figures, the final figures. Boys and girls, many times when people carve things like this and make things, they draw it first. That's what it means to sketch. So they draw it out so they can get an idea of how they want to carve it. So he began to sketch. He began to sketch the final figures, Mary and Jesus. He drew Mary. Then he wadded the sketch into a ball and tossed it onto the floor. So he drew, and then he got mad and he crumbled it up and he threw it on the floor. Then he drew another picture. He didn't like it. He crumbled it up and he threw it onto the floor. He just couldn't get the way he wanted it. He drew again, he wadded it, threw it into a floor. He drew the baby, then he wadded the sketch into a ball and tossed it again, threw it into the fire. He sketched again and again. Once more he crumbled the paper. Soon there was a small mountain of papers at his feet and some into the fire. He picked up a block of wood and he tried to carve, but the knife would not do what he wanted it to do. He hurled the chunk of wood into the fireplace, threw it into the fireplace, and just stared at the flames. Boys and girls, I think Mr. Toomey is very sad. And it was hard for him to carve that woman and the little baby. When he heard the church bells announcing the midnight service for Christmas, he got up. Slowly, he opened the drawer beneath the cupboard. The drawer that he told the widow never to open. First, he took from the drawer the cloth with the lilies of the valley and daisies. He took out a rough woolen shawl and a lace handkerchief. He took out a tiny white baby blanket and a little blue bootie. Oh. He placed each one gently down. From the bottom of the drawer, he lifted now out a picture frame of a beautifully carved out of chestnut wood. He lifted this, boys and girls, out of the bottom of the drawer. In the frame was a charcoal sketch of a woman sitting in a rocking chair holding a baby. The baby's arms were reaching up, touching the woman's face. The woman was looking down at the baby, smiling. Jonathan sat down in his rocking chair and he held the picture against his chest. He rocked slowly, his eyes closed, and 2 tears fell down into his beard, and he held this picture tight. When he finally took the picture to his workbench and began to carve, his fingers worked quickly and surely. He carved all through the night. The next day, there was a knock on the widow's door, Mrs. McDowell. When she opened it, there stood the woodcarver, his neck wrapped in a red scarf, holding a wooden box stuffed with straw. "Mr. Toomey," said the widow, "what a surprise! Merry Christmas!" "The figures are ready," he said as he stepped inside. From the box, Jonathan unpacked 2 curly sheep, happy sheep, because they were proud. He unpacked a proud cow and an angel, a very important angel with mighty wings stretching from its shoulders right down to the hem of its own gown. He unpacked 3 wise men wearing the most wonderful robes, edged with fur and falling into rich folds. And he unpacked a serious and caring Joseph. He unpacked Mary wearing a wooden shawl, looking down at her lovely, precious baby son. Jesus was smiling and reaching up to touch his mommy's face. That day, boys and girls, Jonathan Toomey went to the Christmas service. He went to church with the widow McDowell and Thomas. And that day in the churchyard, the village children saw Jonathan throw back his head, showing his eyes as clear as the blue of an August sky, and he laughed with joy. No one ever called him Mr. Gloomy again. The end. Boys and girls, the Christmas miracle of Mr. Toomey was love, was joy.
I want to go now.
Okay, thank you, Charlie, for joining us. Walk out real carefully. The joy was the love that the widow and her son shared with him. That's what brought the joy. You gonna go on out, Charlie? Okay. Why don't you just carry those with you? Okay. Charlie's gonna head out. It's kind of warm in here, isn't it? With all our lights on. Okay, watch the camera very carefully. See, just like at home, Miss Colleen is just like your moms and dads, with the children and everybody around. Thank you, Charlie, for joining us. Bye-bye. All right, so boys and girls, that was the Christmas miracle. The Christmas miracle was the joy. So we start out with hope. There was hope there. He had hope when the widow and Thomas came and they spent time with him. They brought him joy. There was peace.
My phone.
Oh, okay. There was peace that they brought him too. Watch the camera. The peace and the joy and the hope. That is the miracle of Christmas. So you can remember this story and you can remember the miracle. We're going to get out our little packets and we're going to do something together. So let's place these over here. Okay, boys and girls, everybody get out your packets and you're going to get out you're going to get out those popsicle sticks. Okay? Okay, so get this out. Move some of these aside here. Miss Colleen's going to get a little cup of water while you get out your popsicle sticks and your little pieces of yarn. Okay? I'm going to get my water. Can you get those out, boys and girls? All right, I'll get mine. Mine are right over here. Get that little baggie that looks like this. It has a piece of wood in it, and it has 3 popsicle sticks. And what we're going to make is our own little nativity. Now, mine doesn't have a little hole in it at the top. I didn't drill this one. I just grabbed one. I have an old one, but you guys all have a nice one without this crack in it. This is a little slice of wood, and there's a little hole at the top there. And that little hole is where you're going to put a string. There's a little tiny piece of twine in your packet. And then you're going to put that in there and you can hang this on your tree later. You are going to make a little nativity. Here's what we're going to make. We're going to make Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Aren't those adorable? We're going to make, here's Joseph, he's the taller. And here's little Mary. And then little baby Jesus like that. And then we're going to glue them onto the little piece of wood. And it will look like this. I don't have mine glued on here. I didn't want to because I want to be able to show you. This is what it's going to look like. And then with the little hole drilled in here, you can hang it on your tree. Okay? Or you can hang it anywhere that you would like. And then you can always remember the Christmas miracle. You can always remember the joy. This will help you to remember to bring joy into other people's lives. Okay? So let's all get out your popsicle sticks. Now this might be a little hard to do, this part right here. So moms and dads or an adult, please help them with this. I know you can do it because my grandchild Jackson's the one that gave me the idea when he said, I want to cut some popsicle sticks. And I said, Jackson, you can't cut popsicle sticks. They won't cut with your scissors. He did. He had the exact same scissors that you all have. So here's what you're going to do. One of the sticks, don't do anything yet. Okay, wait for Miss Colleen. One of the sticks has a 1 and a 2 on it. The 1's upside down or the 2, depending on how you're holding it. And the other popsicle stick has a number 3 on it. Okay? So what I want you to do is get the popsicle stick that has a 1 and a 2. You see where there's a number 2? Underneath the number 2, there is a line. Underneath the number 2, there is a line. Underneath the number 1, there is a line. You see it says 1 and a line. Okay, so I want you to cut the line that is underneath number 1. Can you do that? Just cut right on that line. Now mine's not wanting to cut very good. Okay. They cut fine with the other one. I must have grabbed a really super dull pair of scissors. Moms and dads, maybe you can help them at this point and cut with a bigger pair of scissors. I must have grabbed a really super dull pair. And if you got a super dull pair like mine, okay, it might not cut real well. But cut underneath line number 1, and then you're going to cut underneath of line number 2, okay? And I've got these pre-cut, so I am going to bring out my little pre-cut ones. So moms and dads, help them cut that part. If you've got a dull pair of scissors like mine, it won't work very good. But I want you to cut underneath of line number 1, cut underneath of line number 2, and then cut underneath of line number 3. Once you do that, you will have 3 different sizes of popsicle sticks. Because Joseph is bigger, he's number 1. Number 2 is Mary, and number 3 is baby Jesus. Okay, just like that. So, cut your 3 popsicle sticks. Boys and girls, I don't want you to hurt yourself. Your parents should be sitting with you anyway. There always should be an adult sitting with you in the lesson. So moms and dads, if they can't cut that real well, I want you to cut that for them. So take a moment and cut those 3 lines so that you got 3 little figures. I'll give you a second to do that. Everybody cut that. You should have 3 pieces, and they'll be extra. So if you make a mistake, there's a little bit extra in there because number 3 has a whole big piece here that's extra. Okay, so now that you cut that, let's start with Joseph because we're going to save the most important for last, little baby Jesus. So we're going to start with Joseph. You're going to take, Joseph is the brown string. Now there are 2 brown strings in there. One's smaller than the other. There's a smaller piece that you're going to use to make hair for Joseph and Mary, all right? So don't use the smaller brown one. Use the longest piece of brown yarn that is in your kit. Find the longest piece. There are a couple of brown pieces. One's shorter and one is longer. Get the longest piece of brown yarn, the long one, okay? And then get your stick number 3, which is Joseph. No, pardon me. I'm saying that backwards. Pardon me. Stick number 3 is little baby Jesus. Excuse me. Stick number 1. See, mine's cut off here. Stick number 1 is Joseph, okay? Get stick number 1, and that's Joseph. That's the biggest stick. Now you're going to tie the brown yarn on the bottom of the stick just like that. Just tie it in a little knot. But don't leave very much out here because you don't want to waste your yarn. So tie a little knot just like this. And then after you do that, you're going to take the long piece and you're just going to keep wrapping it around, and keep it tight together. Charlie, would you like to try that?
Yeah.
Keep wrapping it all the way around so that it's like this. See? So wrap it around. And again, this might be just a little bit of a technique. Maybe moms and dads, you can help out here. You can watch. This is why you should always be with your child. Someone should be with them in the lesson to assist. And the little environment pieces that we make do not need to be perfect, but it is nice when you can assist them and show them a nice way to do it. It always gives us great joy when the product looks like it looks special, okay? So help them make it special. So you keep wrapping. Good job. Now you don't want to go, when you're wrapping it, see, I'm going to help Charlie here. When you're wrapping it, keep it close together so that you don't see the stick. Okay? Okay, and you want to just keep wrapping it aligned together. Now, that's very good. Okay, Charlie, how old are you?
7.
Okay, Charlie's 7. So you can see that he did do that unassisted. All I did was move a little bit down so you didn't see the stick. So you want to pull it tight. When you're going around it, pull it nice and tight, all right? So you don't run out of stick. Now, Charlie, what we want to do is leave the top here. Why do we want to leave that?
Because the eyes and the smile.
Uh-huh. We're going to make a face. Yeah. And I'll try to give you a close-up picture of this. I'll look at the video later after I'm done if this is not adequate for you to see. But I just made a simple little face with a little fine point Sharpie. Okay, you could even use a black pen. You could use a pencil if you would like, but it'd probably be nice with a black pen, or use a pencil. And all I did was make 2 little eyes and a smile. Okay, you don't need to make a nose. They're like look like little primitive people when you don't make noses, which is really kind of cute. Okay, so we'll do that in a moment. After you tie that around, then you just take that leftover, see boys and girls has those leftover string, just tuck it in the back. Charlie, just tuck it in there. Go like that, lift up that last loop and just tuck it in there. There you go. Okay, all he didn't tie it or anything. You can, if you want, you can take that and this and tie them together. See, Charlie will just, and moms and dads, this is where you could just do this for them. You could just tie that off, okay? And then after you tie it off, if you got any leftover, you could cut it so that it's not hanging out. So just tie it off, and if there's any leftover, cut it off, all right? So that's what it looks like. And then you'll make a little face. Now we're going to do Mary. So grab the blue yarn, okay? Grab the blue yarn, and Mary is number 2. Let Grandma not make a mistake again. Mary's number 2, so I'm gonna, Charlie, sometimes see, this is where it's nice to have 2 people. Okay, pull that through. We're just gonna tie a little bottom onto number 2. Good. Okay, hold on to the stick for Grandma. Good. Okay, you hold on to that. You see how we're doing this together? It's much easier. I made this one by myself, this one over here. This is much easier with 2 people. Charlie's holding the stick, and Grandma, Miss Colleen, is going to tie the blue yarn onto the bottom of Mary's body here. Okay, see, I tied that onto the bottom. And because Charlie was able to hold the stick for me, that was really easy. It's tied in the back. See, when you turn Mary over, now you don't see that. Now you're going to take it and wrap and wrap and wrap. Okay, so now you wrap Mary. Can you do that? Okay, now wrap Mary's body so that you have her blue little robe. Good job. I'll put on a little bit of music here. But it might not want to connect, which is okay. Oh, he's going all the way. Okay, now leave yourself some string. You want to leave some, so now see if you can hide that string in the back there, Charlie. Very good. Okay, you'll find your own little way to do this, boys and girls. Excellent. Excellent. He did really good there. He took it and tucked it under. When he was all done with that last loop, he tucked it under the very last loop. So he took this string, this part of the yarn that he had been weaving, and he tucked it under the very last loop that he made, which means he can take those 2 pieces and tie them together. So tie those 2 together so it hides, so they'll hide back there.
Like what?
Like this. Let's tie them together like that. See, parents, they need you, okay? They need you to help them hide that little. It's nice when you got extra yarn, it's a little bit easier. We're gonna try to tie off a knot in the back so you don't have strings sticking out.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, isn't it? Okay, so I tied that off.
All I know how to tie my shoe.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna tie a knot here. You hold on to the popsicle stick so it doesn't go anywhere. See, this is why it's nice to have 2 hands. I'm glad Charlie was here to show you how it's a little bit better if you work together, parents. And I know most of you are just so good with that, and thank you. Okay, so we tied that off on the bottom. And I'm gonna move it down even a little bit so I don't see the popsicle stick. So you can kind of adjust that yarn. Now Charlie, you see how we have that icky string sticking out?
Yeah.
All right, hold the popsicle stick for Grandma. Now watch, boys and girls. I'm gonna cut close. See? Now looky there. All right, in the back there. There's Mary. Now hold the popsicle stick again. We could have gone up a little bit higher here so Joseph doesn't have such a big head. It's a big face, isn't he? But that's fine. Hold that. All right, and now I'm gonna cut off the back on that one. There we go. Okay. And next, who are we gonna make, Charlie?
Baby Jesus.
Baby Jesus, okay. Same thing again. I did this one ahead of time. So tie the string onto the back. All right. And you want to leave a little bit out because that's how you're going to tie it off in the end. Now, Charlie, weave up baby Jesus. And if you stay close like this, okay, and keep moving down so it stays nice and close. Okay. Good job. And parents too, moms and dads, if any of you have a glue gun, that would be amazing because instead of having a big old knot back there, you could have just done a little dab of glue gun and then secured it for him, okay? Of course, we can't have the RE children working with glue guns, so, but if you would like to just, in the end, instead of tying it, put a little dab of glue gun and push, that would even be easier. Oh, he's going all the way here and even putting it under the last loop. Good job, Charlie. Baby Jesus was the white yarn, okay? You want me to help you? You want me to hold it? Yeah, you need to see this is moms and dads, this is why we need two people. Okay. I think we can go over maybe one more. Okay. Now stick it under that last hook. Can you pull it out there? Perfect. You get it? You did it. That was a little tiny piece. This is where a little glue gun would be nice just to secure it. Okay, hold your popsicle stick and Grandma will tie it off for you because that's a tiny little knot. Okay, we don't have much room to tie. Sometimes you might undo one of the loops. Okay, now what's left over there, you want to cut it off. And again, putting a nice little glue gun there would secure it down, but you do not have to. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to have love. All right, so Charlie, you have Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the Holy Family. So let's give them faces. Let's just use a pencil, okay? And then later, Grandma will give you her Sharpie and you can do it with the Sharpie, okay? Make little faces like that. Okay, boys, take Joseph and put a face on him.
Gee, pencils don't do very good.
Oh, Charlie's discovering that the pencil doesn't do quite so well on the popsicle stick. Let's see. Yeah, you can't press real hard. But it does work if you press softly like this, okay? But moms and dads, I would find a fine point Sharpie, or don't use a fat marker, or a pen, a black pen. Miss Colleen used a fine little Sharpie to do hers. Oh, the pencil's actually working very nice there for Charlie when he doesn't press real hard. Don't press super hard with the pencil. Okay, that's a very cute little Joseph. Big eyes he's got. All right, now do Mary. Do Mary. I'm checking my time here. Okay. It's nice, Charlie. All right, we have Mary. Now he's going to put a little face on Jesus. And in a few minutes, we'll give everybody some hair, okay? Just didn't want to get the hair in the way when we were trying to.
He's gonna sleep now.
Oh, he's making Jesus sleep. So if you make the eyes go like this, it will make Jesus sleep. Let's just show everyone. Oops, I am so sorry. Kabonk, and I made you make a boo-boo, didn't I? Boys and girls, if you make the eyes go like this, it makes the eyes sleep. Or it just makes them look very pleasant. And then on Mary, I go like this and I give her a lot of little lashes. Okay? So you can do like that. Now Joseph, I just gave him a little bit of a different smile. I gave him a little bit of a more narrow smile. Like that. But they don't need to be, don't do details. If you just, the simpler you do, the more basic and simple you do on the face, actually the more lovely and precious it is. Don't try to get all details and make eyeballs and pupils and everything. It gets a little harder, okay? All right. Now, what you want to do is your glue sticks, if you leave it set for a while, maybe, but I would reckon that this would be best with white Elmer's glue, okay? So if you have white Elmer's glue, it's going to be better probably to put this hair on and secure it then in the end. You should have a little piece of brown. Okay, so let's give Joseph some hair any way that you want. What I did is I kind of tied a little bit on the top. And then Mary, I just cut her a piece like this and made her hair. So you want to make Joseph some hair? You should have another piece of brown. That's the piece of brown that's not real big. Here, let's put some glue on his head first. But I think, boys and girls, your Elmer's glue, your school glue that you probably have from your school, will work a little bit better. You want to try this? Yeah. We're just going to give him little teeny tiny pieces of hair here. Just go right in the front. Yeah, that works, huh? And he can fancy him up later, just like you can too. After you turn the video off, you can play with that maybe a little bit more. Because I know when I did mine, I played with it for a long time. Okay? And then same with Mary. Cut her maybe a nice longer piece. And then you can make Mary some longer hair. Like that. Just glue her on the top. Once again, I think your Elmer's glue is going to work better, okay, than your glue sticks. But if all you have is a glue stick that we gave you, be patient, it will work, okay? You're just gonna have to wait for it to dry. Charlie, let's see if we can give Mary some hair. Let's just put a whole, now the glue sticks, some of them are purple and they'll dry clear, so don't worry. I'm just gonna put just a whole mess of glue stick on there, okay? There, a little bit more. Now put Mary's hair on. Excellent. Now push her hair down on the side so it doesn't look like she had a bad hair day. We don't want Mary to have a bad hair day, do we? We want to give her some beautiful, oh, Charlie, that's lovely. Okay, I'm seeing his glue stick, but oh, that's good. Yours is better than mine. All right. The glue sticks work. All right, they will work for the hair if you're patient. Now the next thing you want to do is put glue all over this wood piece. No, just kind of right here in the middle.
Like this?
Yeah. Now put it on real strong, a whole bunch. You put glue on your little wood pieces, boys and girls, but don't cover up the little hole at the top there. Okay, good. Let's get some over here too. We're almost gonna like really use up this glue. Okay, let go from there you go. Now pick up Joseph. Your glue sticks will work. You're gonna have to be patient, let them dry. Okay, put him down. Good, now put Mary, it's kind of, you're almost gonna center Joseph. Put Mary next to him. If you're finding it's not sticking later, use your Elmer's glue generously. Your Elmer's glue, your white glue will work. Okay, let's put her hair down a little bit. The wind must be blowing. Now, put a little glue on the back of Jesus. We're gonna leave Jesus bald, okay? Because Jesus is a newborn baby. We'll just leave him bald. It'll be a little bit easier. Okay, put some glue on the back of Jesus's white robe. His white little swaddling clothes. Let me get a little bit more glue.
It's a little hard on there.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
Okay.
And we're kind of in a hurry because we're doing the video, but if you go slow and patient, these are just going to be absolutely beautiful. Oh, Charlie. This is nice. Okay, boys and girls, this is what it'll look like. Okay, and you take your time, it'll come out really nice. And then you'll see another a piece of twine. It wasn't the yarn, it's a different piece. It's called twine. You'll put that through the hole so that you can hang it. Remember I told you Miss Collins doesn't have a hole in it because I just have an old piece of wood. Okay, and then you can hang it. Okay, so boys and girls, there's your nativity. And our last little item, so you can remember the joy, which kind of seems like oi. Okay, Charlie, would you like to open that up? Be real careful. We wrapped this in, you know what it is. You watched Grandma. Pull right here. We wrapped it in tissue paper because I didn't want them broken. And if yours is broken, I'm sorry. We took great care so that they would not break. So open that up.
This one broke too.
It did. Okay, see, that could happen. All right. Miss Colleen's been carrying, Grandma's been carrying this around. This is a J. It is a candy cane. So we'll take it and turn it upside down. And then you glue that right on there. And it says joy. And if yours is broken, we don't want to eat these, but you can if you would rather just draw the J. But I think it's kind of neat if you leave it in the package. Here's what Charlie did. He left his in the package, the one he made at Grandma's house, and he put it on his mommy and dad's bed that night to bring them joy. So prayerfully yours is not broken, but you can just take it and glue stick it on, and you have a joy card to give to somebody. Okay, and if you glue it on while it's still in the wrapper, the person that you give the card to can eat the candy cane. Okay, so boys and girls, let's close with the Hail Mary as we dedicated our beautiful little environment piece today to the Holy Family. And because of Mary's saying yes to God, we have Jesus in the world with us. Okay. So let's say a Hail Mary. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Boys and girls, have a very Merry Christmas and a joyful rest of the week. Now, you can turn it off for Grandma.